This thing on. We are live. Let's go. What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Modern Creative Podcast. It is your boy, Alberto. How are you doing? I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. We got another solo podder for you today. And before we get to the topic, let's just do a quick little life update. There isn't really much, honestly. I've just been, editing a lot. I have a few shoots lined up this week and next week as well. So, business is doing pretty good. I'm recording on a Monday right now. I've been having a great day so far. Starting the week strong. Did a lot of admin work in the morning, a little bit of editing. After I do this podcast, this recording, I'm going to go back to the editing grind. And then by then, Kristen should get home, and then we're gonna have dinner, and then just hang out and whatnot. But yeah, it's been a good start of the week so far. Although I did catch one minor L today, and I wanted to go to the gym, and as I'm getting ready to go to the gym, I put my gym clothes on. I'm ready to rock and roll. I'm looking for my freaking keys, and they are MIA. And then I remember that I left them in my wife's car. So that was that. So now I'm like, well, let's not waste time. Let's get this podcast going. And so here we are. Even I could get an L here and there. I mean, Jordan had an off night once in a while too. So it's like, we're all Gucci. So let's talk about file management. This is not going to be a sexy conversation as far as talking about the latest and greatest camera gear and which lenses and which filters you're using and editing style and techniques. No, this is basic stuff, 101 stuff that I think is very crucial and is very necessary for everyone to know. So file management, because eventually, once you start gaining a lot of traction, a lot of work, multiple projects that you're going to be balancing at the same exact time, you need to manage those files and organize them to the best you can. So in case you do have to go back 4 months, go 4 months back to look for a specific folder, specific file that a client reached out. It's like, hey, I want a separate edit from project X from 5 months ago. Can you do this for me? You want to go back to that. You want to know exactly where that file is at, so there's no miscommunication, there is no mess ups on your end, and it just makes life so much easier once you do have a system in play when it comes to file management. So if you're in the videography space, if you're in the photography space, this applies perfect for you, because you are going to be dealing with a ton of files, especially photographers, because you're shooting hundreds of photos per session, I think. So it's that sounds like chaos. Okay, so I'm going to explain my way of doing it. I'm not sure if this is the best way for you in particular. So take this with a grain of salt. This has worked for me perfect, and I've been doing this for the last 5-6 years. And of course, with time, I was able to evolve and learn some new techniques when it comes to file organization, and just makes my life easier. But this is the system that it works for me and hasn't failed me yet, knocking on wood. So first of all, we're going to start off with my camera. My specific cameras, which are the Sony systems, I'm sure you guys know at this point. The A7 III, the A7Ss, pretty much from the A7 III to the latest and greatest, you're able to dual record. So with this camera, even from back in 2018 or 2019 when it dropped, you're able to dual record. So as if I open this up right here, I'm not sure if you're gonna be able to see it, but you can see it right here on YouTube. You could insert 2 different SD cards. So as you can see, I just kind of popped the 2 SD cards right here. And I always have 2 SD cards in my camera, no matter what, for every single shoot. And it's the best way to not lose your footage. And I've heard horror stories of people having corrupted SD cards after a shoot, and they only shot with 1 card, and then they use a backup card. And so I want to avoid that. So I want to learn from people's mistakes. And so, knocking on wood, I've never had an issue when it comes to media management or file organization, or having a corrupted card. So step number 1 is, I know all cameras do not have this specific feature when it comes to dual recording. What you do not want to do is cheap out on an SD card. It's not worth saving a few dollars just because you wanted to cheap out and get that specific SD card for that camera. Because in case your camera's a little too fast for it and it's writing too fast for the camera to keep up, there's a chance right there to being corrupted. You do not want that to happen to your production shoots, especially if your client is paying you for that specific shoot. Because I can't even imagine telling the client, hey, sorry, but I totally lost your the footage that we shot the other day. I know we spent 8 hours on shooting this, but my bad. No, let's not do that. Let's not do that. So look up the exact camera you have. There's a ton of information online for free. There's a thing called Google and a thing called YouTube, where if you look up things, you're gonna get the exact answer that you need. So whatever camera you have, look up, hey, which is the best SD card for this specific camera? And you're gonna get a list of cards, like SD cards. So that's just the way to do it. And trust me, if you're if you think the prices are expensive, I mean, trust me, it's worth it. It's worth to get a card that you could rely on and trust, and you know it's not going to fail you. So for this specific card, for my Sony a7 III, I'm using I am using a SanDisk Extreme Pro. This is a V30 SD card. Focus. There you go. So this is the card that I'm using right now for this a7 III, and I've been using these cards forever. I have a ton of these cards, and it's never really failed me. It's fast enough for the a7 III when it comes to photos. It's fast enough for 4K 30 frames per second. 4K 24 frames per second S-Log. So this little card is pretty good, and I will have all the links in the description. So in case you have like a Sony a7S or a7 III, I'm gonna put all the gear that I specifically use for my shoots, as far as cards and SD cards and memory cards and all that. So many cards. I'm freaking getting confused right now. And okay, back to the price for the SanDisk 128. I believe that price is probably around $30, $35, so it's very inexpensive. And yeah, I mean, 128 gigabytes is big enough for me. It works perfectly fine for all the shoots. And plus, I have a system of, when it comes to saving and preserving memory spaces, I always format my cards before every shoot. So that's another way not spend a lot more money on so many SD cards. So for the a7S III, this specific camera, this shoots 10-bit 422, so it takes a lot more information. It demands a lot more speed and space. So I need to upgrade my SD card. So I actually have it right here in my pouch. I'll explain what this pouch is in a second, but I forgot. I have an extra one right here. So this specific card is the Pro Grade 256 gigabyte, and this is a V90 card. These freaking things are expensive as hell. I wanted to get the 256 because I just want to get a set of cards and not be forced to get more cards in case I need more space. 256 is more than plenty for any shoot. I've shot 2-3 days, actually 4 days on a specific shoot, and I've never run out of memory with the 256. And I'm shooting 4K 422 10-bit. I'm shooting 4K 60, 4K 120, which demands so much space. So I've never ran out. But it comes with a pretty price. This specific card cost me a whopping $269, and I have a couple of these bad boys because I always dual record, except for the podcast. So, but I needed this card to show you as an example. So yeah, they're not cheap, but it's worth it. I mean, I am buying a lot more storage compared to the 128s. So the 256 is more than plenty of space. I mean, it is a hefty price, but hey, think of it as a tax write-off. So there's that. So for the a7 III, like I said, I had a whole bunch of 128 cards. So I got myself one of these Think Tank SD card pouches. It costs like $10 on Amazon. Again, links will be in the description. And this has, again, it's pretty empty right now, but I took 2 cards, but this is kind of what it looks like. I have 2 128 memory cards right here, which is for the a7 III. I have a 64 SanDisk micro SD card. That's probably for like a drone for backup. And I have 2 micro adapters as well. So yeah, that's that. It's like, again, it's good to have all these cards in your camera bag in case you were to forget a card for some reason, or in case your camera ran out of memory, you have backups right there. So that is that. All right, let's talk when you're done actually filming or doing your photo shoot. Let's talk managing these files. So what I like to do is if I get home pretty late, let's say if I got done doing a wedding, I specifically think of weddings because I remember how tired I used to be. If I do a 10-hour, 12-hour day doing a wedding, I get home, the last thing I want to do is deal with memory cards. I'm already fatigued. I'm mentally drained at this point too. My social battery is depleted. I just want to eat some food, maybe have a cold one, and then hang out and decompress, watch SportsCenter. So after that, I go to bed. The next day in the morning when I'm feeling rested, have a cup of water, maybe a cup of coffee. Now I'm like, all right, I'm ready to do what I need to do for the day. So what I like to do is in the morning, that's when I start up the computer, import these memory cards, and we're going to talk about actually putting these specific files into a specific folder and whatnot. So, okay, so I usually back up my media. My media is the video files, just for the people that just do not know. I back up all my media in 2 separate folders. One location I store all my media is with this 4 terabyte SSD. For those who don't know what an SSD is, this is a fast little beast. This is where all my active projects land. So I don't want to get into depth with as far as what I use and what I don't use. I want to get to that later. But one of the locations is this 4 terabyte SSD. And another location I use is the Lacy 5 terabyte. As you can see, I have them labeled by the year. At the time of recording, these Lacy 5 terabytes cost you about $169 on Amazon. This works pretty great for when it comes to archives. This is the first brand I would see all YouTubers would use, so I kind of just went with that. And I mean, it's good for just archives. I used to even edit off of these. I don't even know how back in the day, but they're not designed for editing. But I eventually, since I don't really need an expensive hard drive, I just wanted to get something a little cheaper because I'm just using it again for archive purposes. So I went with this 5 terabyte Seagate card right here, and this costs you about, at the time of recording again, $109. So I'm saving myself about $45 right there. And yeah, again, this is just for archive purposes. So I have like 2 of these at this point. I have 2 5 terabytes, but eventually I'm going to upgrade into a 12 terabytes kind of like beast, because I'm noticing I'm getting a lot more clients. I'm getting a lot more, my project files are getting bigger. All these files are just getting bigger and bigger. So I need something to keep up just for archive purposes, because you never know. I mean, I may have to go back and look for a specific file that the client may need or they may hit you up for. So as far as how I do it. So again, one goes to the SSD and then one goes to an HDD. For those that don't know, an SSD, which is this little bad boy right here, an SSD is a solid state drive versus these 2 right here, which is a hard disk drive. So the difference between an SSD and an HDD, that's a mouth freaking full, goddamn. So these use moving parts. I'm not going to get into the technicalities because I really don't even know, but I do know these use moving parts, and they're not the safest for some reason. It is cheaper and it has a lot more storage, but I don't know. It's just like, again, I only use it for archive purposes, file storage, let them collect digital dust. But my workhorse is this 4 terabyte SSD. I never said the price for this thing. At the time of recording, this cost $389, which is, it's an expensive freaking piece of equipment. But I did get it on a discount. There was a deal that was going on, and then Rafi sent me hey, there's a discount. So I got it for I think $50 cheaper. So I think, yeah, it's expensive. But again, the SSD doesn't use moving pieces. It goes based off memory, like a memory chip that it has in this bad boy. And so it's a lot more safe to have the files here for some reason. Again, I'm not a whiz when it comes to like HDD and SSD. So you could find, there's a ton of freaking videos on YouTube or on Google articles if you want to figure out what's the difference and how it works and the mechanics and whatnot. I just know this shit works, and it works flawlessly, and it's extremely fast. Like it's it's a solid state, so it's extremely fast when it comes to reading and writing. So every time, like again, I wake up in the morning, get a coffee, water, and I start dumping the files from my memory card. I start dumping the files to this and to this. This is an old one. This is from like 2021 and 2022. So this is already filled up. So I don't no longer use this anymore. So I'm actively using this one. This says 2022, 2023. And so what I do, I dump them on both of these drives, right? And as far as like organization goes, I'm going to walk you through as far as like how I create my folders and subfolders and subfolders and subfolders. So what I do, and I do it for both of these cards, okay? So what I do is I'll create a year. So for this specific one, the 2022, 2023 hard drive, again, I'm repeating myself, but this is meant for archives. So I'll create the year that I'm dumping on. So for this one, clearly I'm creating a 2023 folder right now, which already has one right now. And then for this one, I don't put a year in because these are my active projects. So I'm not going to delete anything off this if I'm still currently working on it, if that makes any kind of sense. So after I create the year, from here on out, this is what I do for both cards. I will create a title project. So let's say I am creating a video for, let's say Stone Brewery. I'll put Stone Brewery content or whatever. And then from there, inside that specific title name, I'll create a subfolder called clips. Again, you could use whatever words. I've just been using the term clips, like a video clip. I've been using that since day one, so it kind of stuck with me. So I'll put clips, and then in that clips folder, I'll create another subfolder with all the cameras that I use for that specific shoot. So under the clips folder, I'll have A7S, A7S3 folder. I will have A7 III folder in case I did use two different cameras. I'll have drone because most likely I'd use the drone. And that's all for clips, but you could put like either GoPro, you could put like, I've sometimes used iPhone as well. So I have subfolders for each specific camera so I know which one is which. And yeah, so I go back to the title project, and then from there, I'll put another folder that says audio. For audio, I'll record either with a Rode Wireless Go. These do internal recording, so I like to keep that raw file in that specific folder for whatever reason, just in case. And I also have an H6 recorder as well. And so I will title that there and then put the files into the H6 folder. So after that, I will fire up Premiere Pro, and then I will create a project file. I will title it Stone Brewery. And then from there, that Adobe Premiere Pro project file is going to save under the Stone Brewery, which is on this specific bad boy right here. So let's say I finished the edit, the client approves it, I delivered it, I got paid, everything's good. Cool, perfect. So what I like to do is I like to keep this specific drive, the SSD drive, as clear as possible. What I mean by clear is I want to have as much space possible in this specific drive, because the more space you have, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's, if I understand this correctly, it's the more space you have, the better it performs. So this has 4 terabytes, which is pretty beefy. My first one that I had which is connected to this specific project, is a 2 terabyte SSD, which is the SanDisk as well. And that filled up real quick. I think I had 6 active projects, and yeah, like again, these files are pretty large, so it filled up pretty quickly. And so then I had to upgrade to this 4 terabyte, and now I have plenty of space. So what I like to do, once the client approves, I like to pretty much delete what's in the specific SSD drive, because again, I want to have as much space as I can, because this is my active workhorse that Premiere works off on. And then from there, I will transfer the project file from the SSD all the way into the HHD that's saved up for the archives. So now, in case Stone Brewery reaches out to me and says, hey, do you remember the shoot that we did last year? And I said, yeah, I do. What's good? They're going to be like, hey, can you create a reel for us with the specific files that you shot from last year? And I said, cool, I can, because I have everything saved up onto this bad boy right here. And so there, you're good to go. I could actively tell you that right now, I am currently working on an edit that was shot well over a year ago. So if it wasn't for my organization, as confusing as it sounds, it's probably better if I showed you, but it's kind of hard to do that. I'm able to work on old projects and old media because I have it all archived and organized to my liking. So if like, again, like the current project that was shot in 2022, I have this clearly says 2022 right here. So I will go to 2022 file, look up the specific client and look up the specific project. And then from there I could work off of that. So it's a game changer. So yeah, file management is very, very tedious. That's the perfect word. It's very tedious. You need to just be patient with it. Yeah, dumping these cards takes me, if I'm dumping 3 different cameras, even for the podcast, if I'm dumping 3 different cameras for a guest podcast, it's going to take me at least an hour and 15 minutes. It takes time, and you want to make sure everything's organized because it's very, very easy to let's say, like I've done this many times where I accidentally put a project file onto a different folder that's not related to that specific folder. So let's say if I put the Stone Brewery project into like let's say Adidas project folder, like it's happened to me on accident. With Adobe's new layout, it kind of like changed the entire thing. So it's a little confusing. So I'm starting to get the hang of it, but it's very easy to make those mistakes. And even for me, again, even Jordan had an off night. You could make those mistakes real quickly, and it could be very terrifying when you're like, dude, where's that project folder that I've been working on for so long? Like, where the hell is it at? So it can be very scary. But yeah, as far as like the actual media itself, I've, knocking on wood, haven't lost it yet. So yeah, that's one way. Again, little recap. If you have a camera that's capable of doing dual record on both cards as much as you can. If you're doing photos and videos, do the same exact thing. And buy yourself some nice SD cards. Again, don't cheap out on these bad boys because this is the money maker right here. And buy multiple cards too, just to be safe with storage. So get yourself a pouch so you have all your cards in one place. And also put your information here so you don't, in case you do lose it, someone's nice enough to find it, they're gonna call you or reach out to you via your social media. And last but not least, get yourself an HHD, which is a hard disk drive, and also an SSD, which is in case your computer doesn't have that much space. Again, I never work off my computer. I work off the SSD all the time, whether it's via here, like here, my home office, or in my laptop if I'm on the go. I take this with me and all my work is right here. And quick little pro tip, if you do travel for whatever reason, which happens to me quite often, I make sure whatever's in this SSD, which is like the workhorse, is backed up to an HDD, because in case I get robbed or mugged or this breaks and falls in water or something, this will be ruined, but at least all the media and content that you're currently working on is completely safe at home. So if you're a videographer, for sure work off an SSD. It's going to save your computer hassle. If you're wondering why your computer is slow, it's probably because you're not working off an SSD. So do some research when it comes to that. And also get yourself a normal hard disk drive for archive purposes, in case a client does come back to you and says, hey, do you have that footage? Because you don't want to be like, hey, I don't have that footage, I lost it. So you're gonna miss out on money right there. So yes, you could say, well, holding all that media is you're pretty much wasting money because you're using all that space up that's not being used. I mean, I'm speaking for myself. I have clients that come back to me all the time like, hey, I want a specific edit from the shoot that we did 6+ months ago. Happens to me quite often, so it's worth it to me. And again, these aren't too expensive. These are about $110 for 5 terabytes, which is pretty beefy. And for photographers, I can't really tell you what to use. I do know the photographers that I work with, they do use SSDs, but I don't know if they work off an HDD. So again, if you're a photographer, do some research. And yeah, that's all I got for today. Let me know if you have any questions. And again, links for everything that I mentioned on this specific episode is in the description. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, hit me up, DM me, and I'd like to continue this conversation. Peace.